Hello, this is Yannick Golenzen. I can proudly present to you now the John Glen Tribute Suite. Now, you may wonder, what is this about? Where does this come from? And why is it here now? Why have I done it? Now, in a nutshell, the whole story. Recently, two Bond stars, Beatrice Libert and John Glen, have received a Bond Award at the Cineways Filmfestival in Braunschweig, Germany. And to honor John Glen and his work, my dear friend Benjamin Lind has made a couple of tribute trailers. I got to score them, and the music that comes out of that is now the John Glen Tribute Suite, which I decided to release. The way the video is built up is that first, after the introduction, I'm going to let you listen to the whole suite. It has been licensed and released, distributed. You can get it on Apple Music, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Google Play, or listen to it on Spotify. And of course, you can listen to it now. And after the music, if you're mainly here for the music, then you have this, you can listen to that. And after the music, I will share a few stories and a few impressions of the festival itself, because I was fortunate to get some behind the scenes access and to be with the guest stars a little bit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience right after the suite, which we are going to listen to now. So the Cineways Filmfestival in Braunschweig, Germany was the first of that kind in Braunschweig. So it was very interesting to, see behind the scenes a little bit. Now, how did this come to be? My dear friend Benjamin Lind, who I mentioned before, was one of the guys one of the co-organizers who took care of things running smoothly and taking care of the whole event. And we have worked together in the past on various Bond productions. So I said to him, I would like to participate and I would like to see a little bit behind the scenes, because just like with movies, I'm always interested in behind the scenes things. And he said, yeah, of course, that's no problem, and then you can come along and experience the whole thing a little bit. The very cool thing was, of course, that we had 2 Bond stars in attendance for the Great Bond Night, which was director John Glen, 5-time James Bond director John Glen, who's made the Bond movies in the 80s, and the blonde, short-haired woman from Moonraker, Beatrice Libert. What I remember first is that on the first day of the festival, Benjamin and I went to the hotel where John Glen was supposed to stay, or where he stayed actually. We welcomed him, and he arrived with his lovely wife Janine, and they were both apparently in a very good mood, and then they really enjoyed being there. So we welcomed them, and then we went back to the place where some of the program was about to take place, and we took care of stuff there. And later that night, when some of the first things already had taken place, elements of the program of the event, I got to meet Beatrice Libert, and right from the start, she was just a very great woman. Those kind of, kind, warm-hearted, and just amazing people. And I got to talk to her a lot over the course of the days, and because fortunately, I was one of the few people who are fluent in French and who could actually fluently talk to her and really have some conversations, because where I live, the region here is kind of separated into language regions, one of them being German and one of them being French. And so from a very early age on, I was exposed to both languages, which means I'm not good in French, but I can get by. And so, it was great to talk to her about it. She shared some stories of Roger Moore and the shooting of Moonraker, and she couldn't talk nicer about Roger Moore. Just what a great man he was, and just kind of, the image that we have and that was kind of established over the years, which he said is absolutely true. Just a real gentleman, very witty, funny person. I constantly had to remind myself that was actually, I think me as a huge Bond fan, and I think a lot of you who are watching this video are great Bond fans too, that was just completely surreal experience, because constantly had to remind myself that this was actually happening. We grew up with those movies, we love and cherish those movies, and suddenly you have someone sitting in front of you, talking about life and Bond and everything, and it's completely surreal. It was a great time, a lot of great experiences, and to get to know also the person behind the character that she plays in the movie. And of course, John Glen was just great, and because I got to see him behind the scenes, so to speak, of the festival as well, we had a lot of time with the organizers and every with a few people in attendance to go get dinner, and we talked a lot about the Bond movies, which he didn't seem fed up talking about it. He was very willing and happy to talk about the whole things and little secrets and stories about James Bond and other movies. And also his wife Janine, who used to work for Cubby Broccoli as well, which I didn't know, which was very interesting to find out. And also, again, when you were sitting there, having dinner, and he sits opposite you, and you just look at that, and you just think like, this can't be real. It actually can't be real. Look, you're sitting here, and he's sitting there. He was a vital part of the whole Bond franchise. He's a Bond star, and it was just almost unbearable. And 2 stories I want to share with you in particular. Three stories. One night, I think it was also the first or the second night. I get the things mixed up. But anyway, I was standing outside with just 2 to 3 people, and we were having a cigarette break from the event, and we were outside of this restaurant. And suddenly, and John Glen was still having dinner, and just all of a sudden he came out and he just said, "Oh, I needed some fresh air." And then we came to talk about John Barry, and he shared some interesting stories about John Barry, which was again, such a surreal thing. And then the big Bond night and that was just, and I knew Benjamin was, you can imagine like that, Benjamin was hosting that night, and we were sitting in a cinema with about 100 to 150 people in attendance. And I knew that the trailers were to come up at one point. And when we were closing into that point, it was just, I started to feel, I was getting warm in my tummy. And I was also getting very nervous because I didn't hear it in the cinema before, how it sounds and how it appears. And that is always quite nerve-wracking before it actually starts, because usually they screen these things beforehand just to make sure everything sounds and looks appropriate and good. But I usually can't attend those screenings because I can't drive 8 hours, just to attend a screening and drive 8 hours back. And so I was really anxious, and I was also very thrilled, because imagine yourself sitting in a cinema with 150 people, John Glen sitting 2 rows behind you, Beatrice sitting a few seats next to you, and you know that this thing is about to come up, the trailers that you scored. And once they came up, the first seconds I was, oh my god, I hope this is not going to sound like shit. And then they were running, it was just amazing, all that stuff was just completely mind blown. My heart skipped a few beats that moment because it was so amazing. And I had a few opportunities where I could see something in the cinema or experience something in the cinema that I scored, but it's a completely amazing thrill every time. And so that went by, and Beatrice and John got their awards, and the next night, and that's the last story I want to share because otherwise it's getting too long. The next night, again, we were at that restaurant, and again I was outside having a cigarette break, and then some people came out because John Glen was about to arrive, and I was standing there, and he would pass by, and he turned around again, and he kind of put his hand on my arm, and he said, he told me, "I'm so sorry. I wanted to thank you last night when I gave the speech, and but I had to thank so many people, and I completely forgot your name. I'm so sorry, and I just wanted to say that you did a great job on the music." And I was like, I almost passed out. I said before that some things that happen these days were completely surreal, but that was just beyond anything, because you had the Bond legend John Glen telling you that something related to Bond you did was, and I don't mean to brag, I don't know the exact word that he used, but he was complimenting me on something I did related to Bond, which was kind of like getting the knighthood, Again, I want to thank everybody who made this possible, because those were some of the greatest experiences of my life. And I want to thank Benjamin in particular, everyone who is involved with the Cineways Film Festival, who let me be part of this and experience these things. And also I'd like to thank you very much for watching and listening to the things I do. And yeah, I hope we'll see each other again soon. But right for now, I'm just going to say goodbye.